All my wiring is all factory Harley colored wires. So here is when you know you are very anal. I said anal. I totally screwed up. Damn. So let's go put it on the bike.
Sorry, bro, but this show's about me.
So, I got the front end on the bike done, and I started on the wiring, just kind of what I was waiting for stuff, and then it just started rolling, and then I was like, ugh, I didn't record any of this stuff, but I don't think you really wanted to watch me solder things and doing stuff like that, so I will show you what I've done so far. So I'm having an issue with hardware, so I just kind of have some hardware just kind of mocked up, but I got the headlight on and started the wiring process. I sheathed it, goes through the frame, down the backbone, out the back. Got the ignition wired in, sheathed the coil, got it all sheathed. Coil wires are in. Taillight wire, oh, that's supposed to be in, but we'll get that fixed, but it's all sheathed going in. I hate the glare that's going on. Taillight wires come out of the frame. All of the ignition and the headlight stuff comes out of the frame, and then it comes back, wraps around, and goes into this tube that goes down. Ignition is wired out of the frame, or actually out of the ignition wire, ignition housing, which this is a West Coast chopper style ignition or motor mount, and the ignition housing, and then I machine my own little cover so you can't see the back of the ignition, so it keeps it nice and clean. And then I sheath it. Now I do have this one that comes out. Now that one needs a plug that's going to be plugged into here, which is a button that you push. And the button is here on the ignition. So when you push this, this is going to click you from high beam, and you click it again, it goes low beam. Ignition module, heat shrunk sheathing goes underneath. I am running my AN style fit-in Goodrich hoses that are all AN fitting. No hose clamps on this bike. That's where I'll mount the other ones. I just got to get the hardware in for the motor. Now all the wiring comes out of the frame down here, comes across, and then there will be mounted in a clamp here, like a plastic clamp that'll hold it here, and then this is where it all gets distributed. I'll move it out of the way so you can see it. I do have my main breaker, which is 30 amps. I got my ignition, which is 15, and then I got my lighting, which is another 15. So from the charging system, I'll come into the 30 amp, out of here to the battery, and then from the battery, I'll jump straight across to supply the power for the, no, that's not right. Oh, this is for the battery, and then out of this one, we'll go up to the ignition switch, which will be this bigger red wire, and then the power coming back once you turn the ignition switch on, this one will come in and power these two relays, which will power the ignition and the lighting. I am running an anti-gravity 1201 battery. Now this is a regular style battery, but it's a smaller compact. And then this is LC Fabrication's battery mount, which looks really trick. These don't come polished, so I sent these off and had them polished, but the rest of it comes polished, and it's a sick little setup. I like it a lot. As far as the regulator or the relays go, they are bolted in. I made a plate, and these are Hawthorne Company's 3D printed mounts, so it keeps them mounted so that they don't move around, and then you can just move the clips and pull these out. So if you ever need to replace them, that's how you replace them. Horn's gonna hang here in that hole there. I made a plate here for the regulator rectifier to bolt in, so this one will bolt in right here. This wire will feed to the regulator, which will feed to the battery to charge the battery. And then, like I said, then the power wire from the ignition switch will go on the other side, same side as the battery side. So this will hang here. I have to extend this wire, which some people extend it here, which I think is ugly. I always cut it real short down here and then extend from here, so that this way this will go under, start to go under the motor to where the splice will be, so you can hide it in sheathing from here all the way under, so it looks like it's one piece. There's a bike here that somebody else built, and I mean, it's all hacked up. It looks like crap. So anyways, I got to get me some thick wire so I can get this extended, run this along with the wiring that goes to the coils. So I'll get that all ran together, and then it'll separate and go there. I try not to put everything together into one sheathing. I'd rather have two sheathings, so that way if this goes out, I can replace it without having to tear up all the sheathing. If the ignition goes out and I need to replace the ignition, I can replace that without having to tear up the sheathing for this. I just gotta take them apart from each other. But it looks better, it's serviceable, you don't have any crazy problems. NAMs, you're gonna hear me talk about NAMs so much throughout stuff, because that's what I like to do. I like to use their products because, one, they make great electrical. For one, they make great electrical products. Two, all of the wiring that I use, all my wiring is all factory Harley colored wires. So if you ever have to service this bike and I'm not around, you can look at all these different colors and be like, oh, I recognize some of these colors. Yellow with black, that's a horn wire. White with black, that's ignition power. Green, green with blue, or green is, I don't think I had green, so I think I went with green with blue. Or that's the factory, but anyways, that's for the starter, so that's what actually starts the bike. Blue is gonna be power to lighting. Your headlight and your tail light's gonna be your main power to lighting. Red with yellow is your brake light wire. Black is obviously a ground. This big thick red is my main power to my ignition switch. Orange and white is a power. Orange and white is a common power wire on Harley Davidsons. You would think that red is, but red is not. Red is, I don't even remember a whole lot of red being on there. But yeah, orange with the white stripe is power wire. Anytime you see this wire floating around in a Harley, it's a power wire, so I put it in choppers. Red with blue, let me see, red with blue. Oh, I use that one for the headlight module. So this is going to tell the headlight whether it's high beam, low beam. It's in the wiring diagram on this, and I'll tell you about this in just one second. And then these wires, yellow, white, and black, high beam, low beam, ground to headlight. Like I told you guys in other videos also, God, these mosquitoes are horrible right now. Like I told you, I never ground my headlights on the triple trees. I never ground them on the handlebars. I always ground it to somewhere on the frame. This one's actually coming back, and it's gonna be grounded with the rest of the grounds that are coming off of the battery. So that's how I like to do my bikes, and that's how this one's gonna be done. So all my headlights ground back as close to the battery as possible. So that's that. So this is Nam's headlight module. It's a headlight and an on-off switch module. So if you have 2 buttons on your bike, you can make 1 button be your high-low beam switch, and then this module will also do your kill switch. So you click it once and it kills the bike, you click it again and it powers the bike up. I don't use that because that's what the key's for, so that's what we're not using. So to mount this one, what I did is I went ahead and made this out of, I think it's 14 gauge, but I made this little box because there's no mounting tabs on this to bolt it to anything, so it kind of just dangles around. Well, we're going to be mounting it under the bike, so I wanted to make sure it's secured, it didn't fall off while riding, it doesn't get tangled up on anything, gets ripped out, falls down, anything like that. So I made this, and then I made a plate for it also, and I put this little groove, it's like a horseshoe looking thing, kind of looks, yeah, you know what it looks like. But anyways, so what I did is, so I made this little box. Which way does it go in? This way. So that kind of holds that, and I had it powder coated when I sent the frame. So then I put this grommet on here. Oops, let's see here. So slide the grommet through this little slot. And all it is, there's plenty of powder coating on this frame, so I'm sure it's secured. But that's how it'll come out. So now I'll make my connectors, because it's going to have a ground wire, and then it's going to have a power wire to the module. It's going to have a input for what it's doing, and then it's going to have the kill switch stuff. And then it's going to have the 2 headlight wires. So these 2 wires will be going this way and plug in with a plug, and we'll get that all done. But I just wanted to show you how I have everything set up. I use, anytime I'm under the bike, you don't have to use the polished stainless stuff if you don't want to. I don't. I try to save my customers a couple of bucks by not, but I do use stainless hardware, so that way it does not rust. And anytime I'm hanging something from the bottom of the bike, I always use like a nylock nut or a non-nylon locking nut. That way you can feel a little bit more confident that the bolt's not going to wiggle loose from the vibrations, you know, being a chopper, being a hardtail, all of that stuff. So it won't wiggle loose, come loose, fall off the bike, anything like that. So that's why I choose to do that. And stainless, because I don't want it to start rusting or doing any of that stuff. So being that this bike is a rigid, we're running an oil tank that does not have a battery box on it, so you can't hide any of your hardware or your wiring in there. So that's why everything's down here, and it actually sits below the transmission. So that is done. I don't remember which way this one goes, but then this will mount on top once I get all the wiring and stuff done underneath. This will mount on top, the transmission will mount on top of that, and everything is concealed and underneath behind the belt drive and underneath the bike. So if you have to take the primary on and off or anything like that for servicing, you don't have to disconnect the regulator rectifier, you don't have to disconnect coils or anything like that. Everything will just come in and out. You can get in there, change seals, do any kind of gasket work, whatever you got to do, you can get all that done once everything's under here. And I made sure, so anytime I welded any of these brackets or made anything, I put a piece of metal under the frame during mock-up. I put a piece of metal underneath the frame, and then I made sure I welded and bolted and did everything from the top side. So that way I make sure if you're unloading this off of a trailer, or you have a ramp or something that you're unloading the bike for some reason, or putting it in a garage or whatever, you're not going to rip anything off of the bike. So the lowest point of the bike is the frame or the motor. This motor, these RevTech motors tend to have like this little part of the belly of the motor that kind of sticks down, so that's the lowest point of this bike. But other than that, the lowest point of this whole bike when you're moving it around is going to be the frame, so you won't drag any nuts or bolts or rip any of your electronics out of the bike. So that's why I like to make sure everything's up at least at the lowest level with the frame, but I like to get it up a little bit higher than that. So that's that. Go ahead and move on to getting the rest of this wired in, and then I'll show you how that looks when it's all said and done.
Then that should have to apply whether you're on e-bike or a gas-powered bike. So,
Yo, what's going on, everybody? I'm excited today. I checked tracking numbers, and the new 12-point hardware from ARP is coming in. I used to use Diamond Engineering on all my bikes for their 12-point hardware. It was awesome. They're 12-point, they're stainless, they're polished, and they're smooth on the top. They don't have any logos. They've been the hardest company to deal with lately, so shit can them. Changed my order over. I went ARP. Unfortunately, with this one, it's just too expensive for the budget on this bike, so I'm not going to be shaving off the letters and then having them repolished. On my dad's FXR, I'm gonna have to, because I got like 90% of Diamond Engineering's hardware. So I'm gonna go ahead and order my bolts, shave off the heads, have them repolished at Funky Town Shine, and go from there. But anyways, check the tracking numbers. The hardware's coming. Gary Queen just showed up. He did the bodywork and base coat. It's just black, and then we sent it over to Loki called Cardone. Loki is all you need to know. Once you hear Loki in the lowrider industry, everybody knows Loki. Loki striped it. He striped the tank and the fender, and it came out sick. Customer was saying, when we were talking back and forth, oh, I don't want green, because he had a Springer, like a, what is it called? BMC chopper, and it had a Redneck Engineering Springer on it, which is what we put on this one. He had the guys at 3-2 choppers build him one, so we went ahead and put that on. Got rid of the hydraulic front end that the bike originally had when he purchased it. Then we got the black bike, 120 spoke wheel. Oh. But so Loki striped it. It's got a ton of green, but it looks really good. It's so sick. I can't wait to put it on. But anyway, so I have the hardware here. We got the electrical done. We got the hardware's coming, I should say. Should be here today, according to tracking numbers. It's a split shipment, so some of it's coming from FedEx, some is coming for UPS, so we'll see who gets here first. Got the oil lines all in, got the throttle cables and stuff done. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna start reassembling the belt drive stuff. I went ahead and had this like repolished, and then I blacked out. We did black powder coat on the belt drive pulleys. That way they weren't just that gray color. And so by doing that, I had to take out the bearings. So we're gonna go ahead and put some fresh bearings in this bad boy, so that way everything rolls real smooth. The springs and the bolts are in bad looking condition, so I ordered a new set of springs and new bolts, so that way we'll have new hardware in there. I got to double check on the dogs. So they call these the dogs, and what it is it's little bolts that bolt into the primary. I'm looking. There you go. Sorry about that. I just want to show you guys. So on an open belt drive, there's the dogs are they on the? So these are called the dogs, the little dog bones or whatever. And if you feel them, you want them to be completely flat. This one kind of has little grooves, but it's really not that bad. But what happens is if the grooves get really bad, when the clutch plates are supposed to be floating on here, so when you pull in the clutch, it releases the plates, and it lets them float on here freely. If this gets bad grooves, they'll catch on there. So sometimes you'll go to pull in the clutch and some of the plates will still be stuck together, and then you're kind of screwed, because like the bike's going to want to slowly start creeping through the stoplight or whatever. So, or when you go to take off, if they catch on those things, they're only going to grab on part of the disc, not completely flat. And what that's going to do is it's going to make the clutch slip. So you just got to inspect these. This one isn't too bad. I'll have to go through. I don't want to waste your time while I look at all of these. Let me grab just another random one. They're really not that bad. I'll give him a holler and see, because I got to put an order in. If they're not very expensive, we'll just go ahead and replace them. That way he has fresh dogs in there. So fresh dogs, that's my dog. I did have the front pulley fully powder coated, and then I got Paper Street Customs his badass looking stainless bolt for the front motor pulley. So I sent that to Funky Town for them to shine it up. So once we get that back in, but you can kind of see what that black and that chrome is going to look like, and with that stainless nut in there, whoo, buddy, it's going to look good. So I'm going to start getting all of this stuff ready to go back on the bike. What else do I have? And then I can go ahead and check the jetting and everything on the carburetor. It's got a Mikuni. It's got a 45. It's overkill for, even for a 110-inch motor. A 45 Mikuni is overkill. I would prefer a 42. The problem being is his 45 is fully polished. So to get one of these is probably $500 to $700. A fully polished 42. I don't think we're going to do that. So what I think we're going to do is leave some paper towel in the carburetor, so that way it kind of reduces the amount of airflow going into the carburetor. That's just a joke. I'm just kidding. We're not doing that. Don't do that at home, okay? But no, we're just going to kind of take down the jets a little bit and kind of tame it down a little bit. I think it's probably going to be too much fuel, and it's just going to waste gas. So going to get that done, but yeah, all the wiring's done. The oil lines are done, even the license plate. So once we get hardware, we'll start bolting stuff in. I got to put the transmission in. I need a little bit of hardware for the ground wires, and I need to clean up some of the area around where it's going to be grounding, chassis ground. I got to clean that up. But yeah, other than that, everything else is here. Oh, I got the wrong size bolts for the regulator rectifier, so I'll have to get longer ones. The ones I got barely fit. I didn't measure for the thickness of the nut. Whoops. But other than that, everything seems to be going good. We got parts coming in. Paint is back. Yeah, we're good to go. I just need hardware, and then I can get this thing going. I hope to have this is Wednesday. I hope to have this bike up and running by the weekend, and then put some miles on it. I might do a special appearance and see if I can trick him to get there, and then I could give him his bike or just roll up on it, and he'd be like, what the hell? So I'm thinking we might do that. Maybe we'll do that for the FXR tour. Is going to be ending up at Dallas, at Stroker's Ice House on a Wednesday. I don't know if he would come out on a Wednesday night, but if he would, then to show him his bike there would be kind of cool. A lot of people could check it out, and I don't know. I haven't talked to anybody about that. I might do that, and then if it works out, then we'll do it. If it doesn't, then you won't see it. Other than that, everything's going as planned, so I'm excited. So see if we see some hardware. But let's go put some belt drive stuff together. All right, let's go. Whoop.
So you were 8 years old working at Best Buy? With other like-minded gearheads today. Just log into your Summit Racing customer profile and click the My Garage button to get started.
So here is when you know you are very anal, I said anal, about details. This hose clamp, because Mikunis, I can't do an AN fitting on Mikuni. Maybe that's something I will make in the future, since I use those, but maybe have one machine so you can do AN fittings to an AN fitting petcock. But anyways, it's got a chrome clamp, so I ordered black clamps. I'm getting rid of this chrome one, and I'm installing black one to murder it out, which I got the wrong size. But anyways, yeah, that's what details are all about. So now I've got all the wiring done and the oil lines done, and I went ahead and got the transmission in and got it lined up with the motor and got it all locked down and stuff. So check this out. factory style connector. Oil lines. On the oil lines, so instead of having the drain tube on that side, I went ahead and on the feed side, which is going to be the lowest side of the oil tank, has no tubes, so that's going to be the lowest point to get as much oil out. As it comes down, which, yeah, that could be a problem because it does go back up, but that's just a tad bit of oil. So as it comes down, I teed it off right here that goes into the feed. So now when you want to do an oil change, there's this piece here that has a screw underneath the bottom. So you unscrew that and it's going to drain the oil from the feed line. It just kind of cleans it up. Got my connector here ready for when I do the mid controls. This is going to be the brake light switch for the rear brake lights. Ignition's all wired and coated and covered. This is my wire for the high-low beam switch, so that's just kind of sitting back there. This is all the wires from the ignition. You can see how all the ignition wires are hidden with that custom cup that I made. Wires go straight into the frame. Coil wire. The plug, I extended the wire for the charging system, so those are all sheathed up. I just got the hardware, so I haven't plugged this in. I got too short of hardware to bolt this in, so now I have the right hardware, so I got to bolt that in, and then I can start putting primary stuff back on. Oil lines. Once the primary's on, then I can go ahead and put the bolt in and get the ground done and all the way down. So for inspection purposes in Texas, you have to have a horn. So I don't know if you knew that these key switches, so that's on and then you hit the start. Well, there's another function on these key switches that I don't know if people know about, but you can push it in and it says for choke. But if you wire it to something else, you can use it for another function. So this is how you turn the bike on and off. You start it. That's for the high-low beam switch. So you just touch this button, it goes high beam. You touch it again, it goes back to low beam. So when you're riding, you can take your clutch hand off and just touch it with your finger or your thumb and hit your high-low beam switch. Well, check this out. Yeah, that's it. So you just grab the key switch and you just push it in, and that function, instead of going to a choke, it goes to the horn. So I don't have to have another button just for the horn. It's kind of hidden in here. So, yep, you just turn it on, and if you have the ignition off, it does nothing. I'm really digging this handmade LED taillight, Garley's Garage handmade. It is aluminum, and then I have a stainless bolt with the wiring. I have it all loomed real nice and neat. It's all blacked out, so it's really hard to see a bunch of the stuff. I did have this polished, and then I had it anodized black. So it looks good. And then when the ignition's off, kind of looks blacked out. It doesn't really show that it's, you know, really bright and doesn't take away from anything, doesn't stand out. But as soon as you turn on that ignition switch, booyah! I don't have a brake line on, so I can't show you the brake function, but I will shortly. Digging the headlight. Oh yeah. Had Funky Town polish it really, really good, and then sent it over when I had everything powder coated, and then they gloss black powder coated the back section. So man, it looks sweet. Nice and loomed. So as I move into the back end of this bike, I went ahead and took the axle, because what I noticed is I was having a hard time getting the axle in and out. On this specific model frame or style of frame, it's a hidden axle, so the axle goes in, boom, and then you have these set screws, not set screws, tensioners, and they push against the axle and it holds the axle tight. Then you tighten it down from the sides. Well, the problem is when you take this round 3/4 axle that it's just the right size to go through the bearings, well, what happens is when you set these in there, I don't know if it'll focus, when you set that bad boy in there, that's going to leave an indentation on the axle. So when you try to slide it back through the bearings, it's going to catch on the bearings, it's going to grind through there, it's going to scar it, mar it, whatever you want to call it. So that's not a good thing. So what I did is I went ahead and put the axle in, chucked it up, put it in my mill, decked this side, turned it, just spun the whole thing around, and then decked it across there too. So it's the same on both sides. But do you see that little step in it? See if I can show you. That little step in it right there? So now when this goes in there and it creates a little divot, it's going to be lower than what will touch the bearings. So now there shouldn't be any problem with this going in and out after it's been tightened and then loosened and then slide the axle out. Shouldn't have any problems. So something kind of smart to do. Not only that, but you're pushing on a flat surface instead of on this round surface. So I don't know. I don't know if a lot of people do that. I don't know if anybody does that. That's what I'm decided to do on this one, because I did notice that that's going to be a problem. So yeah, now when you push on this to tension it up, it'll come out of the wheel, no problem. So on to installing the rear tire. And they call it a Sprotor because it's a sprocket and a rotor all in one. Got the brake line ran, so it's really kind of hard to see. I got some clamps that hold it to the frame. So from out here, doesn't even look like there's a brake line on it. Keeps them lines nice and clean. So before I put the chain on, I want to say when I took the primary off, it was really, really dirty on the backside. So we went ahead and put a new primary bearing. And then the seal back here on the back is leaking. And what I want to do is I want to go ahead and replace the seal. And then I want to show you something that you got to look for when you are replacing those seals. Something you got to look for. You don't just replace the seal and everything's going to be great and fixed. It's going to go out soon if you see this problem. I believe I saw the problem and I just put it back together for mock-up, and now I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. So now that we got the sprocket off, it's this little bad boy right here. So a lot of times when you take this one off, sometimes it has little grooves on it, and that's not good. Now I remember on this one, I sanded it down. I used Scotch-Brite to kind of sand it down, but there's still some little edges on it. So what I did is I went ahead and got a new one. So I rocked around the whole shop and couldn't find it, just for it to be sitting in front of my face. Anyways, so this is a hard coated one. It's got a different kind of coating. This one's from Baker, so it's the same exact one, but it's got a hardened coating on it. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna run this one on there. So we're gonna pop this out and then pop this in, pop a brand new seal in. This is a Cometic seal. We're gonna pop that one in and rock and roll. Let me grab a couple of things real quick that we will need. So what we got is, first we got to get the seal ready. I have some O-ring grease. I like to put that inside the two grooves, just a little bit here and there. Kind of smear it in there, smear it on the outer edge, the inner edge. Just that way when I put it over or put the spacer in, it will go in nice and smooth. So we'll go ahead and put some over the outside of this. And put this out of the way for a second. Go ahead and grab my seal remover. Pop out the seal. I've already drained this transmission. Usually when you do that, all the transmission fluid would be pouring out right now. Let's get this guy on here. Actually, it's better if you sit it on here nice and smooth. That way you don't mess up the seal. Graphio hammer. Just want to make sure that seal's nice and flat. There we go. It wasn't leaking into the clutch basket, it was just all back here, so that's this seal. If it was leaking in the clutch basket, then you'd want to replace that seal that's in here, but it was not doing that, so I'm not worried about that. Now we're going to go ahead and put this guy in there. Boop. And now we just reassemble it. Going back with the sprocket. Sometimes they just don't like lining up. There we go. You put your thing on there. Now remember, this thread is backwards, and so is this one. These ones are left-hand threads, so they're in reverse. So usually you'd be going righty-tighty. Well, if you watch this, that doesn't work. So you want to go lefty-loosey. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 1 drop of red Loctite on that bad boy. You don't really need a lot of Loctite on here if you're going to run the, so it's just so confusing. So you don't need a lot of Loctite if you are running a lock plate. Got caught slipping, going the wrong way. So put my socket on. Then I give it a quick zap. Now all you do is you just put your lock plate on here with these bolts. So it was spinning real hard and everything like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and kind of lock, well, actually no, I will set this aside. Let me go ahead and throw this in the trash. I'm going to go ahead and get the chain and start getting the chain mounted, and then we'll zap this one more time just to make sure it's really tight, because you saw how it was spinning and I was trying to spin it the wrong way to get it to kind of lock on there. So, but I think I was doing all of that backwards. But anyways, we will zap this again one more time once we get the chain on there, and we can put the tire on the ground and we can keep this from moving. So this isn't a standard type of chain with just a clip in it. This is a rivet chain, so it's kind of like a like one for a crotch rocket racing style setup. So this is a rivet style. So what I need to do first is I need to go ahead and get the link to press on so that it's on there, and then we will rivet it to lock it in on there. Ow, that freaking hurt my foot. Always read your instructions because I can't remember. I got it kind of pressed on. Let me show you here. That's the master link. You can see how it kind of looks like all the others. Now check out this chain though. Look at how the corners are all rounded and stuff. Sick chain, right? But anyways, so now that we got the link kind of pressed on so it's holding on, now what I got to do is I got to do the rivet. It's not a rivet, but it's like a flare, so it pushes in here, which makes this link flare out. That keeps this from falling off instead of a link on there. So that's what I got to do now, but I want to make sure I get the right pieces because this chain is hard to find and links are going to be even harder to find. So let me make sure I get it done right the first time. So like a beginner, I forgot to push record to show me riveting this chain on, but let me show you what it looks like once it's riveted on. See here, it's flared out. This one still has some of that grease in it, but that's it. So I got that tightened up. Now it's time to put on this retaining ring. So it's got multiple spots that line up with that, but see, you want to line up with the holes. So there you go. So we'll get these. We're going to put a dab of red Loctite on each of them. Blue would probably be sufficient, but we're going to put red. So now we're going to go ahead and put some tension on the chain, get the proper chain tension by using the axle adjusters, lock it all down, and then we can start putting that inner primary on. I totally screwed up. The chain is too long. I forgot that I was supposed to take off one more link before I put this chain back together, and I didn't even. I didn't do it. Damn it. So now it rubs the mounting hardware when it's tight. Sometimes things don't go the way you plan, and you just gotta fix it. Luckily, the owner knew I liked this chain a lot, so he bought me one. So guess what? I have a link. So now I can go on the hunt for a new link down the road, or soon, and then when it shows up, then I have a link again, but I'm gonna have to steal the one from my chain. Yeah, so usually I'm excited, but it's just, it is what it is. It's $2 too late. I reached out and said I really wanted this done, the seat done for Born Free. I was told, yeah, no problem. Was never told it wasn't gonna happen. But it is what it is. Actually, it looks really good. Puente, it's his last name. And then it's even covered on the back. So, let's go put it on the bike. Came down to Fort Worth. Was gonna go to the stockyards, but like it was packed with people and it was so busy, and I was so nervous with the bike and I didn't want to fumble around with the GoPro, so I wrong setup today with the to get some filming. But the bike rode really, really good. That 3.2 Spinger, you know, was going good. The wheelbase of the bike is really nice. It does bounce. Like, I'm not used to bouncing around on a bike, so it's been a while since I've been on a rigid. So it was really cool. I'm at the Dirty Crow. I keep wanting to call it the Crowbar because the Crowbar sounds cool, right? But anyways, so yeah, I'm at the Crowbar, or the Dirty Crow. But yeah, so the bike rode really well. The problem I had, sorry, I don't know where to look. The problem I was having was my shoes. Like, the toe rubs against the front pulley, and it's like rubbing rubber off, and it looks like I scratched the front pulley, and then I rub it, and it, like, all my rubber from my shoe comes off. And then I was riding along, and I did something, I shifted or something like that, and then the my heel got hit by the lugs on the belt drive. Like, it's just been a while since I've had an open belt drive riding around on one. I did the CFL, but those lugs were kind of sticking in well, no, they don't have the springs and the lugs sticking out, so it's more in there. So if you bump anything, it just kind of rubs on the actual outside of the clutch hub. This one has the springs with the bolts, and so it's like, I was like, holy shit. So but yeah, anyways, but for the most part, the bike rode really, really good. I'm happy with it. God, really, really, like, there's nothing I can do about it. Anyways, oh, look at, got some hotties coming through. But and so yeah, it's just, the bike rode really well. I didn't know where to go. What's up? What's up? What's up, baby? How are you? Oh, look at her, good. Look at them getting some. Get some for the YouTube. That's why they call it Funky Town. But yeah, did you just see? I love it. Anyways, it's influencers in the wild reporting live on Crockett Street. Anyways, so yeah, everything went really well. I was really excited with it. Getting a lot of thumbs up, a lot of people shoot, and then back up to check it out, and then take off again. So I really wish I had all that stuff. I've been out of the scene for a while, so I don't really know where to go. So if you're from Fort Worth, drop a comment, and let me know where to hang out. I want to get back into stuff. Dallas is fun. There are places in Dallas, but Fort Worth, we're called Funky Town for a reason. There's got to be some places that people like to hang out, and I would like to check it out. So in the comments, drop some stuff, and I'm gonna go finish my Red Bull. I'm gonna get on the bike. I'm gonna get back to the shop. So y'all have a good one, and we'll wrap this up shortly. Peace.